Welcome to the August Garden Calendar. In this episode, we're going to take a look at what plants are in flower during this month. We'll feature a video segment on using drip irrigation. We'll take a look at what to prune, fertilize, and spray this month. We'll discuss tips on when to harvest those vegetables. Also, we'll get inside the honeybee hive and discuss the importance of honeybees in the garden. All this and more in this episode of the August Garden Calendar. Plants in flower for the month of August include crepe myrtle, rose of Sharon, various hydrangeas, abelia, canna, dahlia, trumpet creeper, cardinal flower, butterfly weed, phlox, hosta, liriope, sunflowers, spider flower, and many other summer annuals.
Of August, and some people consider August the hottest month of the year. So one thing that's usually not as ample is water for our plants, either in the garden or in container plants or whatever. So we need to make sure we get those plants ample water for them to survive, especially if you're growing a garden, for them to yield and produce. They say an inch of rain for garden plants a week, but really, the month of August with all the transpiration, they really need water at least a couple times a week, as much as it dries out. So one thing you can use in the garden, and it's very inexpensive, is irrigation. And what I've got here is drip irrigation. This is a tube that has a little hole every 9 inches. And you just run a main little tube, cut it, run your water hose to it. And then I'm just going to show you how to install. I'll put 5 little strands of drip out from this main tube, and I'll just show you how we install that here. First, you need a little puncher to punch a hole in that main line. I've already kind of punched it there. That's what you'll use. You just insert a connector. Connect your drip line. Just run it on out your garden. When you get out here, I've got a little cutter. We cut it off at the length we need it cut at. And then you just insert what they call a goof plug. It's just a solid tip. So now, when I turn my water on, I've actually got a little water timer I use. Comes on every day. It'll put a pressure out here and let's let it run. And it's better really I let my irrigation run for my container plants every day, but for the garden, I'll usually water it 2 or 3 times a week. And I soak it for a good long while, let it get good and soaked. This way you're not getting overhead irrigation on the leaves, where they'd stay wet during the night and cause some disease. Drip irrigation is much better for disease control and does a great job in keeping ample water to your plants, your tomatoes, beans, whatever during the month of August.
For pruning in the month of August, really there's not a lot we do. If someone has shrubs in front of their house that are kind of getting leggy or little misshapen and you want to trim those up, that's okay. It's okay to shape up your shrubs if you don't take more than, typically the rule is 10% of your shrubs can be pruned during the off season, but typically most of our heavy pruning does not occur until usually January, February for deciduous shrubs. So for general rule, for hardwoods and things of that nature, we do not prune heavily in the month of August. For fertilizing in the month of August, there's a couple things we can do. First of all is if you have still some tomatoes or beans coming on in the garden, things of that nature, we can still side dress with fertilizer to give those vegetables an extra boost of energy to help produce good-sized produce and crops. Also, strawberries. If you have beds of strawberries will benefit from a little feeding of nitrogen fertilizer this month as well. But do not fertilize shrubs in the month of August, September, or October. Well, here in the month of August, a lot of people are harvesting produce from the garden. So let's look at some vegetable harvesting tips. Have you been wondering about when you want to pick those beans, pull that corn, or dig those potatoes? Well, here's some answers to help you with your harvesting techniques. Of course, vegetables have to reach maturity and be harvested at the correct time to have the best taste and quality. Some vegetables have to be picked on a regular basis to remain productive. Others are harvested only one time. Each vegetable is different, so let's look at several of these common ones. First, let's look at cucurbits. Pickling cucumbers need to reach 1 to 2 inches long. Slicing cucumbers need to reach 6 to 8 inches long and 1 to 2 inches in diameter. Harvest both of these types of cucumbers every 2 to 3 days when producing. Cantaloupes need to reach 5 to 10 inches in diameter with a yellow tan between the netting. Also, when mature, the stem separates easily from the melon. Pumpkins need to be harvested when they reach the proper size and turn their proper shade of orange. Leave 3 to 4 inches of stem on the pumpkins. Now let's look at root crops. Irish potatoes are dug when mature, usually 90 to 120 days after planting and when the tops turn brown and die. Sweet potatoes are dug usually when they're 100 and 125 day old and just before or after a vine-killing frost. Now let's look at some of the upright vegetables and their harvest maturity. Okra, for one, needs to be harvested when the pods reach 3 inches long and are bright green. Harvest okra plants frequently to keep them productive. Now for sweet corn, harvest the ears when they are 5 to 10 inches long and when the mature kernels exude milky sap when punctured. Tomatoes, harvest the fruit when they are fully ripe for best flavor. Size varies with the variety. Let's look at 2 types of peppers now. Hot peppers. They need to be harvested when 1 to 3 inches long usually, and use gloves when harvesting. Sweet peppers are harvested when they're 2 to 4 inches long and when green, or they can be left on the plant until they turn red, orange, yellow, or purple. Lastly, looking at upright vegetables, let's look at snap beans. They need to be picked when the bean pods are 4 to 6 inches long and are pencil-sized thick. Finally, let's look at a few lower to the ground vegetables to wrap it up. The summer yellow squash and zucchini should be harvested when they're 6 to 12 inches long and just 2 inches in diameter, and having the correct green or yellow color. Harvest these squash every 2 to 3 days. And finally, watermelon. They should be harvested within about 80 to 100 days of planting, when the belly turns from white to creamy yellow. And they also need to have that good thump. So there you go. There's a few good tips to know when to harvest those vegetables. So now you know when to go out there and dig those potatoes, pull that cantaloupe, or pluck those green beans. As far as spraying goes for the month of August, your peach and nectarine trees may need a trunk spray for peach tree borers at the end of August. Also, if you have peach trees or apple trees and they're still not fully developed, you'll need to continue your fruit tree spray program, which is typically an all-purpose fruit tree spray, and spraying that about every 2 weeks. Then you'll need to scout your garden for your late season vegetables. If you just put out some of your fall season plants, you can scout them for your worms or even squash plants for borers or squash bugs or bean beetle. Scout your vegetable garden for harmful insects, and if so, spray the proper pesticide there. Also, if you have bunched grapes, you'll need to continue that bi-weekly spray program for your bunch grapes. And you can still control your woody weeds by spraying them with the recommended herbicide, things like kudzu, trumpet creeper, wisteria, poison ivy, greenbrier. So we can continue to spray for those problem vines and brambles and weeds also in the month of August. One thing we'd like to cover today is the importance of the honeybee in the garden. First of all, bees are invaluable pollinators. 80% of all flowering plants require some type of pollination. 1 out of every 3 bites of food we eat in the United States is attributable to being pollinated by a pollinator. Our champion pollinator is our honeybee. It's actually the European honeybee. Now we're getting inside our beehive here, and we're actually smoking the bees and using some of our different tools that we use when we get inside our beehive. One thing I use a lot of is the hive tool, which helps me pry the lid loose. That's a beekeeper's favorite tool. Now we actually have to smoke the bees, which makes them think there's a fire out there. They gorge themselves with honey. They become less aggressive, more lethargic, less apt to sting me. So now we smoke the bees, continue to smoke them, make them think they're all in there eating their honey. And now let's remove the telescoping lid. And there actually is an inner cover in there, and in this instance today, it's actually stuck to the inner cover in the telescoping lid. Typically that's not the case, but the bees emit a product called propolis, which kind of sticks everything together inside of a hive. So there you see the frames inside of my hive. Got the inner cover loose from the telescoping lids. Just going to set those down. Now let's put a little more smoke there on the bees, calm them down. We don't want them aggressive, just flying all around us. And now let's use the hive tool again. We'll break those frame loose after we smoke them one last time. Each of those frames is where the bees will store their honey. And that's called a super that has those 7 or 8 frames in there. I think that's a 10 frame hive, so I probably got 9 frames in this one. We'll pry that loose with my hive tool. Now this this little divider, well, let's pry one of these frames loose. This is my honey. You can see the bees that are on it, and you'll look in there, and there is liquid wet honey in there, but it is not capped over. So the bees are continuing to fill this frame up with honey. So now let's smoke the bees again, calm them down. I like to keep them calm during this process. And that screen there that you're looking at is a queen excluder. The queen is in those last 2 bottom boxes. One's actually a super and one's the brood box, the really deep one on the very bottom. If we remove the queen excluder, the queen is so big she can't get up through that screen, so she can't get up into the frames of honey above. And then now we're going to pull out some of these frames here. Sometimes there can be eggs in there. Often it's just their honey, and that's what is there. That is capped honey. And that's what we want. When the bees fan the honey, they get the moisture out of it down to about 17% or less. They'll cap it. And that's what a beekeeper wants to see. That's what we use the extractor in those type of frames, and that's delicious, pure honey. Yeah. A whole super could weigh up to about 50 pounds, that honey. I'm using the frame grip tool you'll see there to grip the frame. And I use the hive tool to prise it loose, but you can see lots of good honey there. All of that is capped. That is really what the beekeepers are typically after, right there. Now, sometimes the queen will get up in that super there and lay some eggs, but here there are no eggs. That's just pure honey in that super that I'm getting ready to remove right here. The queen is actually truly down in the bottom brood box. The bottom, we call it, some people may call it a super, but it's a brood box. It's deeper than the rest. We're smoking the bees, getting them to calm down a little more. We'll remove that. That's heavy, over 50 pounds. Yeah, that whole super of honey, probably 50 to 60 pounds. Smoke them down here. This is where the queen will be with hopefully some eggs. We'll get in here and see what we've got. Yeah, and I've got a few different frames you can see there. One's green on the end. It's a plastic frame, and I think one on this side is a white frame, but they're plastic. The other ones are wooden frames. There's just a variety of different frames out there that beekeepers use. Have to mix and match sometimes. But you can see these frames are much longer. This is the brood area. It's a deep frame. And you can see some eggs there. The capped cells, that's not honey, but that's actually larvae. Maturing larvae are under those capped cells, and they will emerge as adult bees. Note the pattern. It's kind of scattered there around the edges. Hopefully we'll find a frame that's got a better brood pattern. But as the summer wears on, the queen doesn't lay as many eggs. They kind of start diminishing the population of the bees in the hive. Let's see if we can find another frame with a little better pattern. But sometimes you'll find, just the small eggs in the holes. Sometimes you'll see the white larva. But the capped brood means that you've got a lot of bees about ready to hatch. There we go. A much better pattern. Look at that frame, almost full of capped brood. And the drone cells kind of protrude. They stick out, if you can see some of those. And but there, a lot of good brood there. And the queen actually does determine the sex of each cell as she lays the egg. So there we are. That's a good frame of bees there. A lot of bees will be hatching out of that frame probably in the next week or so. So more bees means more honey. So that's what a beekeeper wants. A lot of bees so they can go out and get lots of honey. So that just gives you an idea there. We didn't really see the queen. There's only one queen per hive. We're just not going to really go in there and disturb her. But now we've got that. We're going to smoke them, kind of calm them down. You can see they've got a little more aggressive. Buzzing around quite a bit more, especially when you get down in there with the eggs and the queen. They don't like that near as much, so they become a little more aggressive. So we're smoking them to calm them down. And now we'll just reassemble things. We'll put we just want to smoke them to where they're not on the edge. Try to not to kill any bees if we can help it. So get them crawling back in the frames. And then picking up this 50 or 60 pound super of honey. It's pretty heavy. Gotta get it positioned right back on there just right. Okay, now put our queen excluder back so the queen cannot get up in the upper supers. which are going to be my honey. That one super of honey below the queen excluder is their food for the winter. But the supers of honey above the queen excluder will be what I will harvest and extract. And since that one's about full, and I had a lid there, we actually need another super on there, because when they fill that up, they're going to run out of room. So I've gone back to get an empty super of frames. Let's smoke them one more time, get them to go back in there. Try not to kill any bees as I reassemble things here. And we'll add that other super to it. The fuel I use in my smoker, I use pine needles sometimes. Sometimes I just use cut up denim from blue jeans. People use a lot of different things. There are a lot of different items you can use for smoker fuel. Put my inner cover back on there. My telescoping lid that's covered in tin, keeps the rain out. And then I always add a big rock or something to hold it down during times of a storm or big wind. So there we go, we're back together. Okay, as far as additional tasks go for the month of August, some things we can do is we can take cuttings of some of your favorite shrubs here in the month of August for propagation. Things like rhododendron, azalea, your hydrangea, etc. Then you'll need to treat those properly, keep them in a moist environment, probably maybe dip them in some rooting hormone, but we can get those favorite shrubs to propagate, take root, and create some more new plants for your yard. Also, if you're planning to do some fall landscape planting, be sure you have a planting plan prepared. Go out there, look around your landscape this time of year, look where the sun is falling. If it's hitting one end of your house and it's really hot there, plan ahead. Maybe you need to plant some trees there to provide some shade there in the future. So look at that for your landscape. Then maybe if you have a bare spot up against your house or in certain areas, go out, look at your yard, your landscape, try to draw a plan, and try to go with that when the months of October or so roll around, when it's time to plant plants. Okay, as far as lawn care goes in the month of August, we will need to continue to mow our grass and keep it at 3 to 4.5 inches high. Don't cut it too close. When we cut our lawns too close, that lets a lot of sunlight penetrate that soil surface and lets a lot of weeds germinate. So try to keep that lawn mowed at a decent height. Remember to try to crisscross your mowing to try to prevent erosion routes or from running in certain areas. Also, in late August, if you're going to reseed a certain area of your lawn, if it's just gotten too far out of hand, you just want to kill it, or it's basically dead, you may need to try to go in and late August treat that lawn with some type of complete burn down herbicide and make sure that's dead. It usually takes 7 to 10 days to tell, and then you might need to go back and treat certain areas again. Get that completely dead, then kind of start working your ground, whether it's with, a spike, or even some people might want to slightly till, but whatever. Get that lawn area prepared. You can even put the fertilizer out as we're going to get ready to seed in September. The best month of the year is September to seed a lawn. So prepare that area in August for seeding in September for your lawn. Well, we hope you've enjoyed our garden calendar. If you have questions, call us at 632-4451 or visit us at our website at alexanderextension.com, where there's lots of helpful information and events, and you can also sign up for a monthly newsletter there. That's alexanderextension.com, or stop by and visit us at the Alexander County Service Center at 151 West Main Avenue. Hope to hear from you soon.